Hello, welcome to another episode of I Go There, so you don't have to, but you should. Anyway, in this episode we're going to be talking about a movie that I've always really dug, that I always run across on like Saturday afternoons, middle of the night, whatever. It's one of those movies that just kind of, you'll find it about once a year, tucked between the weird medical device commercials in the middle of the night. Or, that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's called Black Sunday, and it came out in 1977, and it is a simple plot. Terrorists are going to attack and blow up the Super Bowl. Boom, that was the concept. Robert Evans was the producer. The kid stays in the picture. I'm sure that they went to him and said, hey, there's this book by Thomas Harris, who you might know wrote the Hannibal Lecter books. He would go on and become quite famous, but Black Sunday was his first book. Anyway, they sold the book. Robert Evans said, hey, I want to make this into a movie. I'm going to get John Frankenheimer, who made The Manchurian Candidate, and a bunch of weird paranoid movies from the 60s, and he's going to direct it, and it's going to be a gigantic, big hit in 1977. It was an okay hit. It did okay, but it was another movie that came out that year that kind of sucked a lot of the air out of the room, and that, of course, was Star Wars. So, anyway, getting back. Black Sunday. Simple story. It stars Robert Shaw. It's got Bruce Dern, a Swiss actress named Marta Keller, and then a bunch of other people. So, a lot of people you recognize from 70s movies, actually. I mean, there's a bunch. And it's actually set at real Super Bowl 10. They really filmed a huge chunk of this movie at the actual Super Bowl. And I'll get into that in a minute because it's pretty incredible how they pulled this off. And another factor with the other main character of this movie, which is the Goodyear Blimp. And by the way, so yeah, the poster. Let me see if I can pull this up here. The poster. This was the selling point. It's a Goodyear blimp, flying into the stadium. So right here, you see like tons and tons of people running away. They're freaking out. The Goodyear blimp is coming in to do whatever it's going to be doing. That's at the Super Bowl. Anyway, that poster, that thing is iconic. That is such an iconic shot from the 70s. Black Sunday was kind of near the tail end of these disaster movies. And, we'd have buildings burned down, Towering Inferno, ships sinking, Poseidon Adventure, Earthquake. I mean, the list goes on and on. The 70s were loaded with totally freaked out disaster movies. A guy named Irwin Allen was the king of those things. But so Robert Evans and Frankenheimer said, well, we're going to tap into that. This Thomas Harris book is pretty good about that. But it's also kind of newsworthy because he based it on what had happened at the Munich Olympics with Black September when the terrorists killed the Israeli athletes. And so anyway, he kind of took that idea and said, we're going to do kind of the same thing, except now they're going to literally blow up the Super Bowl and kill 80,000 people and the President of the United States, who will be at the game. Anyway, long story short, it opens up in Beirut about 8 months before the Super Bowl, and we meet Robert Shaw, who's this Israeli commando spy guy, and he's been sent in with some commandos on some little Zodiacs, and they pull up to a house somewhere near the coast of Beirut there, and then they go in and they kill all the terrorists except for this one woman. For some reason, Robert Shaw sees her, and he's gonna take her out, and then decides he just doesn't do it. Anyway, well, obviously she becomes one of the main stars of the movie, and her deal is she's part of this plot to blow up the Super Bowl. And she has found an ex-Vietnam veteran who's all pissed off at the world. He was a Vietnam POW, and it's played by Bruce Dern, who at this period in the 70s was going through his really kind of wacky Bruce Dern phase. And Bruce Dern is still rocking and rolling. He's making tons of movies. He made like 8 or 9 movies last year. You probably recognize him lately from Nebraska, which he was nominated for an Academy Award. He's the father of Laura Dern. Hateful Eight, Django Unchained. He's worked with Tarantino a lot. And anyway, so Bruce Dern plays he's a disgruntled ex-Vietnam POW who lost his wife and his kids, and he's ripe. He's ripe for he's angry. He's full of anger. And so this terrorist woman, she taps into that, and she's kind of brought him in and brainwashed him, and they're going to blow up the Super Bowl with a Goodyear blimp because that's what his job is. He flies Goodyear blimps above stadiums for football games. So Basically, the whole story is now the FBI is kind of hip to there's something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. There's a terrorist plot in play, but really no one knows what it is. And I'd say the first hour of the movie, it kind of like, kind of chugging along, not too quick. The end 70s in that way, not a lot of exposition. It kind of goes off into some weird little tangents, but it always comes back. And Robert Shaw, as simple as it is, literally finds a magazine that they've like stormed a terrorist apartment, and he finds a magazine, and it's literally got the Super Bowl, and he looks at the FBI and he's like, "What is this Super Bowl?" And they went, that's it. That's what they're going to be doing, the Super Bowl. So the rest of the movie now, the next hour of this movie, it's kind of almost two movies. The first hour kind of chugging along, and then it gets exciting. John Williams, who's rocking and rolling, Star Wars, that's in the theaters at the same time. He did the score for this movie, and it's not a famous score of his, but it's really, really good, and it really builds tension. This is a guy that definitely knows how to build tension. Jaws, dun 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 dun. This is a guy that can do that. So for the next hour, it becomes this really heart-pumping, fantastic movie while they literally hijack the Goodyear blimp and they're flying it towards the Orange Bowl in Miami, where the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the Cowboys. Now, here's the coolest part. This is amazing, and this would never, ever, ever happen today. Frankenheimer and Bob Evans convinced the NFL and Joe Robbie, who was the owner of the Miami Dolphins at the time, founder of the Miami Dolphins, to let them literally shoot all these scenes, like not action scenes, but them like hanging around, because they're studying the crowd, because they're, where are the terrorists? What's going to happen? They don't really know. They don't know that the blimp's coming in to do this. They just know that the Super Bowl is a target. So it's all being filmed at Super Bowl 10. And so the real game's going on. And so you go, and it's pretty fascinating because there's Terry Bradshaw throwing the football. There's Roger Staubach. I mean, it's really a kind of a time capsule. It's also really cool because Super Bowls are now so insane. They're these massive, massive, massive spectacles. This was a day game. The game starts about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Not a lot, literally the players just walked out of the tunnel. No big deal. They announced the stars, and then the other players walk out. It kind of just feels like a regular NFL game on any given Sunday for history. And then for the Star Spangled Banner, Up With People. I don't know if anyone remembers Up With People, but Up With People was this singing group in the 70s. And they're there just singing the Star Spangled Banner. And they would be, you would see Up With People on like Battle of the Network Stars and things like that. They wore like different color pastel outfits, and they were pretty silly and just kind of very cheerful. Up with people, that's what was going on in the late 70s. So that's pretty amazing that they allowed them to film huge chunks of the game. There's a whole scene where Robert Shaw is running around the stadium. Now, can you imagine this today in our completely paranoid freaking world? That they'd be allowing a movie to be shot during a real game like this, because and this is pretty cool. They disguise movie cameras as CBS television cameras. That's pretty awesome. So people didn't know that they were making a movie, but people were probably looking at Robert Shaw going, "That's Captain Quint, Sharkin, from Jaws." That's who he is. I mean, they're like, that's the guy, USS Indianapolis, went to the water, and, I went in the water, 600 men went in the water, and, 10 came out kind of thing. I'll never wear a life vest again. So he's running, he's sprinting around the field once he gets wind of the fact that there's going to be a blimp involved. Anyway, so it builds up to this, last 30-minute crescendo, this blimp. A blimp coming to attack the Super Bowl. And it's pretty awesome. They do a really great buildup of this. And Robert Shaw ends up on a helicopter dangling from a rope and lands on the blimp, and he attaches the helicopter to the blimp right as it's going into the stadium. Now, this is pretty cool. I did a little research on this, and they literally, about a week or two after the actual real Super Bowl, back at the Orange Bowl in Florida and Miami, got 17,000 extras to show up one afternoon and put on shows for them. Stuntmen lit themselves on fire, all kinds of things, so the fans would have a good time, to literally shoot the mega disaster, zillions of people freaking out scene. They do all that stuff in CGI now, but they literally got 17,000 people to show up one day and lose their shit. I mean, they're going nuts, running around like crazy as this blimp is coming into the stadium. It's nuts. And Robert Shaw is hanging on the side of it, like, he's hanging onto it, and he's trying to attach this thing. And Bruce, they took out Bruce Dern and the terrorist, but Bruce Dern is just alive enough that he's got a lighter and he's trying to light the fuse because this thing's a big bomb. And oh man, it is so good. And it just builds with tension and tension and tension. And then, you know they're gonna save the day, but but it builds and builds and builds. And there's literally a scene with the nose of this thing is like in the stadium and people are all running around. It's just it's amazing. They don't make movies like this anymore. And then it kind of, and the day is saved, and then it kind of ends in that great 70s way. Robert Shaw is flying away. He's back hanging onto the helicopter, and there's no like scene, you would have now where they land and everyone hugs and they're happy. It just ends, credits come up, day is saved. Just very, very cool. Robert Shaw sadly would die about a year or so after this. And he'd been in so many movies. The Sting, Forced Him from Navarone, which I just talked about, which would come out in the next year at the same time. From Rush with Love, he's Red Grant, and from Rush with Love, play the assassin, the Smersh assassin, the blonde guy that looks like Mike Pence coming after Sean Connery. Anyway, Black Sunday is just a classic piece of late 70s political, paranoid thriller mixed in with a disaster movie, that's just Hollywood gold right there. That's just good Sunday afternoon commercials for Tempur-Pedic mattresses, the whole yards thrown in, weird vitamins, watches that do all kinds of strange things. Those kind of commercials that come on all day and night on the cheap channels. So anyway, if you ever run across Black Sunday, check it out. Very, very cool movie. There's so many excellent little things in this. They actually have a look-alike Jimmy Carter, and I was reading about this. They filmed this in 1976. The elections were going on, so they actually filmed a look-alike Gerald Ford, a look-alike Jimmy Carter, just in case just in case they had the right guy, because this would come out in 1977. So anyway, just the fact that Goodyear and the NFL allowed their branding, all this stuff. Basically, someone said, hey, can you imagine this pitch session when they walked in and said, hey, we got this great story, NFL. We're going to come in, and it's basically a story where the Goodyear blimp that flies above all your games, it's going to land, it's going to come down into the stadium and blow up. It's actually going to shoot these projectiles and murder 80,000 people. How's that? I mean, you guys down with that? So, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's really good for branding. That'd be good for the NFL, good for Goodyear. Let's do that. And they did it. It's incredible. Apparently John Frankenheimer had a good relationship with Goodyear because he made a really cool racing movie called Grand Prix back in the 60s. And he would just kind of approach the PR people and say, hey, what would you think about this? This would never happen now. Twitter would just flip the freak out. The internet would go insane. I mean, the NFL alone would just go, what? Joe Robbie, the founder of the Miami Dolphins, is in the movie. And there's a scene where Robert Shaw says to him, hey, we need to cancel the Super Bowl. And he's like, cancel the Super Bowl? That's like canceling Christmas. So it's pretty amazing. Apparently, also when they filmed the scenes with all the extras later, they had kind of made the B team by Miami Dolphins playing the Steelers and the Cowboys for some of those shots. So they could have actual real looking football players running around. But really, really, really cool movie. Like I said, if you run across it, check it out. Black Sunday, 1977. It's a classic. I went there, so you don't have to, but you should. So anyway, more fun stuff coming up soon. Hope you enjoyed this little episode. And yeah, ciao.